In this video, you will find explanation of part 1 of Act 1, Scene 2. This scene takes place in Belmont, a room in Portia's house. Here you will find Portia in conversation with Nerissa. Portia is the rich and beautiful heiress of Belmont, and Nerissa is her maid. In this scene, Portia shares with Nerissa her doubts concerning her future because of the strange will created by her father. Now let's come to the text. Portia. Nerissa, my little body is aweary of this great world. By my faith, Nerissa, my little body is tired of this great world. Nerissa, you would be, sweet madam, if your miseries were in same abundance as your good fortune are. You would be tired, madam, if your miseries, your sadness are in same quantity as your luck is or your wealth is. And yet, for aught I see, they are as sick that surfeit with too much as they that starve with nothing. And yet, as far as I can observe, those people who have a lot, they are as sick as other people who are starving or does not have anything. It is no mean happiness, therefore, to be seated in the mean. It is no small happiness to be positioned in between poverty and richness. Superfluity comes sooner by white hairs, but competency lives longer. Those who have too much of anything will age sooner, but those who have just sufficient, they live for longer duration. Portia. Good sentence and well pronounced. Good words and they are well spoken too. Nerissa. They would be better if well followed. They would even sound better if they are well obeyed. If to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor men's cottages Prince Palace. If to act was as easy as to know what is good to be done, then in that case chapels would have converted into church and poor men's cottage into Prince Palace. It is a good divine that follows his own instruction. He is a good priest who follows his own teaching. I can easier teach 20 what were good to be done than be one of the 20 to follow mine own teaching. I can easily teach 20 people what is good to be done, but be one among those 20 and follow my own teaching. The brain may devise law for the blood. The brain devises rule for the body. But a hot temper leaps over a cold degree. But the heat of desire jumps over such laws. Such a hair is madness, the youth, to skip over the meshes of good counsel, the cripple. Madness of youth is such a hair which leaps over the net of good advice. But this reasoning is not in the fashion to choose me a husband. But this kind of logic is not the kind that will help me to choose a husband. Oh me, the word choose. I may neither choose whom I would, nor refuse whom I dislike. Oh, not the case of choosing, as I may neither choose whom I like and can't even refuse the one whom I dislike. So is the will of a father of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. And so the will, that is wish, of living daughter, that is Portia, is curbed by the will of a dead father, the will that is framed by Portia's dead father. Is it not hard, Neresa, that I cannot choose one nor refuse none? Is it not difficult, Neresa, that I cannot choose the one I like nor even refuse the one I dislike? In this speech, Portia expresses her concern for her future. She is worried about the will that is framed by her father, but still, as an she has to follow the will. Nerissa, your father was ever virtuous. Your father was a good man, and holy men at their death have good inspiration, and good men at the time of their death they have good inspiration. Therefore, the lottery that he had devised in these three chests of gold, silver, and lead, and therefore the lottery, that is the trial of chance that he, your father, had designed is in this three chests of gold, silver, and lead, whereof who chooses his meaning chooses you. Whoever chooses the right casket, right means the casket which was meant by Portia's father, will choose you. Will no doubt never be chosen by any rightly but one who shall rightly love. For sure, without any doubt, will never be chosen by anybody except the person who really loves you. But what warmth is there in your affection towards any of these princely suitors that are already come? But what is your feeling, your affection towards any of the princely suitors who have come to make the choice of casket? Portia, I pray thee, overname them. I request you, call out their names, and as thou namest them, I will describe them, and as you name them, I will describe them, and according to my description, label at my affection, and according to the way I describe them, guess at what feelings I have for them. Neresa, first, there is the Neapolitan prince. So, first, there is Neapolitan prince. Portia, aye, that's a fault indeed, for he doth nothing but talk of his horse. Yes, he is just like a wild young horse, who does nothing but only talks of his horse, and he makes it a great appropriation to his own good part that he can shoe him himself, and he makes a great part of his qualification that he can shoe the horse himself. Neapolitans, they are famed for their horsemanship. Nerissa. Then there is the County Palatine. A County Palatine, Count is a local ruler or a nobleman. County Palatine, he was a count from Palatinate, the region on the west bank of the Rhine. He doth nothing but frown, as who should say, and you will not have me choose. He does nothing but frowns, as if to say, I care little whether you want me or not. He hears merry tales and smiles not. He listens to merry tales and he doesn't even smile. I fear he will prove the weeping philosopher when he grows old, being so full of unmannerly sadness in his youth. I am scared that he will turn to be a sad philosopher when he grows old, because he is so full of such unpleasant sadness in his youth. Weeping philosopher was Heraclitus of Ephesus, who went to live alone in the mountains because he was so distressed by mankind's stupidity, and for this reason he was being called as a weeping philosopher. I had rather be married to a death's head with a bone in his mouth than to either of these. I prefer to be married to a skeleton holding a bone in his mouth than to be married to any of these. God defend me from these two. God save me from these two. How say you by the French Lord Monsieur Le Bon? So, what is your opinion about the French Lord Mr. Le Bon? God made him, and therefore let him pass for a man. God created him, and therefore we consider him to be a man. In truth, I know it is a sin to be a mocker, but he, why, he hath a horse better than the Neapolitans, a better bad habit of frowning than the Count Palatine. I know it is wrong to ridicule others, but he is more attached to his horse than the Neapolitan. He frowns more even than Count Palatine. He is every man in no man. He has every fault of a man, but not a man at all. If a throstle sing, he fall a capering. He will fence with his own shadow. If he hears a thrush sing, he begins to leap about, and he would even fence with his own shadow. If I marry him, I should marry 20 husbands. And if I marry that man, I will be marrying 20 different people. If he would despise me, I would forgive him. For if he love me to madness, I shall never requite him. If he hates me, I can forgive him for that. But if he loves me to madness, I shall never be able to return it. Nerissa. What say you then to Falconbridge, the young Baron of England? So, what is your opinion about Falconbridge, the young Baron of England? Portia. You know I say nothing to him, for he understands not me nor I him. He hath neither Latin, French, nor Italian, and you will come into the court and swear that I have a poor penny worth in the English. You know I say nothing to him because he does not understand me, nor I understand him. He does not understand Latin, French, nor Italian, and you know that I have very poor knowledge of English. He is a proper man's picture, but alas, who can converse with a dumb show? He looks like a fine figure of a man, but who can converse with a man by means of sign, because we do not understand each other's language? How oddly he is suited. I think he bought a doublet in Italy, his round horse in France, his bonnet in Germany, and his behavior everywhere. I think how oddly he is dressed. I think he bought his doublet, his jacket in Italy, his round horse in France, his trousers from France, his hat in Germany, and his behavior everywhere, and his manner from everywhere. So with this we end with the explanation of part 1 of Act 1 and Act 1 Scene 2. You will find explanation of the later part of the scene in the next video that I upload. Thank you.